turned it gently upside down, and out of it slid the barrel of a rifle neatly tied round with greased cloth and stoppered at the muzzle with a piece of tow. I could have kissed him. Yes, such was my joy that I could have kissed that hideous, smelly old Hottentot. "The stock?" I panted. "The barrel isn't any use without the stock, Hans." "Oh! Baas," he added, grinning, "do you think that I have shot with you all these years without knowing that a rifle must have a stock to hold it by?" Then he slipped off the bundle from his back, undid the lashings of the blanket, revealing the great yellow head of tobacco that had excited my own and Komba's interest on the shores of the lake. This head he tore apart and produced the stock of the rifle nicely cleaned, a cap set ready on the nipple, on to which the hammer was let down, with a little piece of wad between to prevent the cap from being fired by any sudden jar. "Hans," I exclaimed, "Hans, you are a hero and worth your weight in gold." "Yes, Baas, though you have never told me so before. Oh! I made up my mind that I wouldn't go to sleep in the face of the old man, Death. Oh! which of you ought to sleep now upon that bed that Bausi sent me?" he asked as he put the gun together. "You, I think, you great stupid Mavovo. You never brought a gun. If you were a wizard worth the name you would have sent the rifles on and had them ready to meet us here. Oh! you will laugh at me no more, you thick head of a Zulu." "No," answered Mavovo candidly, "I will give you sibonga. Yes, I will make for you titles of praise, O clever Spotted Snake." "And yet," went on Hans, "I am not all a hero. I am worth but half my weight in gold, for, Baas, although I have plenty of powder and bullets in my pocket, I lost the caps out of a hole in my waistcoat. You remember, Baas, I told you it was charms I lost. But 3 remain, no 4, for there is one on the nipple. There, Baas, there is Intombi all ready and loaded, and now when the white devil comes you can shoot him in the eye, as you know how to do up to 100 yards, and send him to the other devils down in hell. Oh! won't your Holy Father the Predikant be glad to see him there?" Then, with a self-satisfied smirk, he half-cocked the rifle and handed it to me ready for action. "I thank God," said Brother John solemnly, "who has taught this poor Hottentot how to save us." "No, Baas John, God never taught me, I taught myself. But see, it grows dark. Had we not better light a fire?" And forgetting the rifle, he began to look about for wood. "Hans," called Stephen after him, "if ever we get out of this, I will give you £500, or at least my father will, which is the same thing." "Thank you, Baas, thank you, though just now I'd rather have a drop of brandy, and I don't see any wood." He was right. Outside of the graveyard clearing lay, it is true, some huge fallen boughs, but these were too big for us to move or cut. Moreover, they were so soaked with damp, like everything else in this forest, that it would be impossible to fire them. The darkness closed in. It was not absolute blackness, because presently the moon rose, but the sky was rainy and obscured it. Moreover, the huge trees all about seemed to suck up whatever light there was. We crouched ourselves upon the ground back to back, as near as possible to the centre of the place, unrolled such blankets as we had to protect us from the damp and cold, and ate some biltong or dried game flesh, and parched corn, of which fortunately the boy Jerry carried a bagful that had remained upon his shoulders when he was thrown into the canoe. Luckily I had thought of bringing this food with us, also a flask of spirits. Then it was the first thing happened. Far away in the forest resounded a most awful roar, followed by a drumming noise, such a roar as none of us had ever heard before, for it was quite unlike that of a lion or any other beast. "What is that?" I asked. "The god," groaned Kalubi, "the god praying to the moon with which he always rises." I said nothing, for I was reflecting that 4 shots, which was all we had, was not many, and that nothing should tempt me to waste one of them. Oh! why had Hans put on that rotten old waistcoat instead of the new one I gave him in Durban? Since we had no more roars, Brother John began to question the Kalubi as to where the Mother of the Flower lived. "Lord," answered the man in a distracted way, "there, towards the east. You walk for a quarter of the sun's journey up the hill, following a path that is marked by notches cut upon the trees, till beyond the garden of the god at the top of the mountain more water is found surrounding an island. There on the banks of the water a canoe is hidden in the bushes, by which the water may be crossed to the island where dwells the Mother of the Holy Flower." Brother John did not seem to be quite satisfied with the information, and remarked that he, the Kalubi, would be able to show us the road on the morrow. "I do not think that I shall ever show you the road," groaned the shivering wretch. At that moment the god roared again, much nearer. Now the Kalubi's nerve gave out altogether, and, quickened by some presentiment, he began to question Brother John, whom he had learned was a priest of an unknown sort, as to the possibility of another life after death. Brother John, who, be it remembered, was a very earnest missionary by calling, proceeded to administer some compressed religious consolations, when, quite near to us, the god began to beat upon some kind of very large and deep drum. He didn't roar this time, he only worked away at a massed band military drum. At least that is what it sounded like, and very unpleasant it was to hear in that awful forest with skulls arranged on boxes all round us, I can assure you, my reader. The drumming ceased, and pulling himself together, Brother John continued his pious demonstrations. Also, just at that time a thick rain cloud quite obscured the moon, so that the darkness grew dense. I heard John explaining to the Kalubi that he was not really a Kalubi, but an immortal soul. I wonder whether he understood him. Then I became aware of a horrible shadow. I cannot describe it in any other way. That was blacker than the blackness, which advanced toward us at extraordinary speed from the edge of the clearing. Next second there was a kind of scuffle a few feet from me, followed by a stifled yell, and I saw the shadow retreating in the direction from which it had come. "What's the matter?" I asked. "Strike a match," answered Brother John. "I think something has happened." I struck a match, which burnt up very well, for the air was quite still. In the light of it I saw the first anxious faces of our party. How ghastly they looked! And next the Kalubi, who had risen and was waving his right arm in the air, a right arm that was bloody and lacked the hand. "The god has visited me and taken away my hand," he moaned in a wailing voice. I don't think anybody spoke, the thing was beyond words, but we tried to bind the poor fellow's arm up by the light of matches. Then we sat down again and watched. The darkness grew still denser as the thick of the cloud passed over the moon, and for a while the silence, that utter silence of the tropical forest at night, was broken only by the sound of our breathing, the buzz of a few mosquitoes, the distant splash of a plunging crocodile, and the stifled groans of the mutilated man. Again I saw, or thought I saw, this may have been half an hour later, that black shadow dart towards us as a pike darts at a fish in a pond. There was another scuffle just to my left. Hans sat between me and the Kalubi, followed by a single prolonged wail. "The king man has gone," whispered Hans. "I felt him go as though a wind had blown him away. Where he was there is nothing but a hole." Of a sudden the moon shone out from behind the clouds. In its sickly light, about halfway between us and the edge of the clearing, say 30 yards off, I saw—oh, what did I see? The devil destroying a lost soul. At least, that is what it looked like. A huge, grey-black creature, grotesquely human in its shape, had the thin Kalubi in its grip. The Kalubi's head had vanished in its maw, and its vast black arms seemed to be employed in breaking him to pieces. Apparently he was already dead, though his feet that were lifted off the ground still moved feebly. I sprang up and covered the beast with the rifle, which was cocked, getting full on to its head, which showed the clearest, though this was rather guesswork since I could not see distinctly the foresight. I pulled, but either the cap or the powder had got a little damp on the journey and hung fire for a fraction of a second. In that infinitesimal time the devil—it is the best name I can give the thing—saw me, or perhaps it only saw the light gleaming on the barrel. At any rate it dropped the Kalubi, as though some intelligence warned it what to expect, threw up its massive right arm. I remember how extraordinarily long the limbs seemed, and that it looked thick as a man's thigh, in such a fashion as to cover its head. Then the rifle exploded, and I heard the bullet strike. By the light of the flash I saw the great arm tumble down in a dead, helpless kind of way, and next instant the whole forest began